Alright, so I got this interesting concept brewing in my head of the Tifosi versus the FIA, or perhaps the Tifosi versus FOM. Who knows? One way or the other. Or why am I dubbing it the Tifosi versus the Tifosi specifically? Why that? Well, it's the Tifosi because some interesting things to note about the Tifosi is that a lot of F1, a lot of the F1 space, the sphere, the whole metasphere, quite frankly, a lot of people are Ferrari fans, whether they know it or not. Why is that? Well, because when you've watched enough F1, which car is always there? It's the red car. It's that red one. It's always there. You go back into some vintage film, it's always there. Black and white, the badge is there. It's noteworthy when Ferrari don't run the red. Right, the last time they didn't run the red, I forget which year exactly, but it was in protest. They decided, okay, no, we're not gonna run the Ferrari red. You don't get that for this Grand Prix. Long ago, 50s or something, but anyway. And Ferrari is such a storied team right now. They've had drivers die in their vehicles, they've had drivers win in their vehicles, they've had drivers come back from life-threatening crashes in their vehicles, they've had drivers come back from injuries in their vehicles. They've had legendary designers, they've had really bad designers, they've had all sorts all the way up and down, and they've been ever present regardless. And they've had some talismanic cars, right? Some cars that perhaps don't get the result, but well, they're a real fan favorite, just perhaps because of the way they sound, because of the way they look. And there's even an artistry about Italian engineering, and they put that onto the race car when they can, where they can. They're perhaps not as consistent with it as other outfits in recent times, especially with the challenge of some recent rules, this way and that way. However, you might fall on some really ridiculous rules along the way. But there is an artistry about the cars and a mystique and an energy about them. And this translates across all the eras. Whether you first start off as a Ferrari fan or not, this translates through all the eras, and you see it in all the cars. It's like, oh, it's the Ferrari. There it is. Oh, what was it doing in the 80s? What was it doing in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s? And Vettel even had a similar take. I won't really bother finding the video. I'm sure it would be difficult to find the video now, or perhaps not so difficult, either way. But he had a take on people and being Ferrari fans. Everyone was curious as to when Ferrari would be challenging again, when Vettel moved there at the start of the turbo hybrid era. Everyone was curious, oh well, when are Ferrari going to be? And Vettel, he noted that, well, everyone's so curious about Ferrari, everyone must be a Ferrari fan. You've been watching F1 long enough now, I'm sure you're a Ferrari fan now. So Lewis Hamilton, he said he's a Ferrari fan. He perhaps is a McLaren fan first and foremost, perhaps a Mercedes fan now. But that red car, it's going to always be there on the F1 grid. And if it's not there, then F1 has flopped. If Ferrari actually make a breakaway series or what have you, then F1 has completely flopped by then. And that grants a lot of power to Ferrari. That grants a lot of power to the Tifosi. And so when a Monaco occurs, Monaco 2022, and Verstappen is caught crossing the pit exit line, and receives no penalty. When that happens, the Tifosi are not going to be as split on it as perhaps the British media would be, because the British media do not have a manufacturer in this thing. They don't have a manufacturer in this race. And the Tifosi, well, Ferrari in particular, they understand the value of a Drivers' Championship. We're still talking about the previous Drivers' Championship. Mercedes won the Constructors. No one really cares about that. We're talking about the Drivers' Championship still. You know, anyone can bring it up. It's not exactly a resolved issue. And the Tifosi, they understand this already. They've seen enough Grand Prix racing. They know what it means for the car to have a Drivers' Championship. It's one thing to have a Constructors, but the car got a Drivers' Championship. A driver was able to seal the deal in the car. And the Tifosi, they know this already. Whether they can say it out loud or they just know it intrinsically, they know it already. Red Bull know this. That's why they committed so heavily for the Drivers' Championship. You know, they discarded the Constructors. They could have won the Constructors. They discarded that. And they said, we need that Drivers' Championship. And they got it. By hook or by crook, who knows? Perhaps German media might have said something else about Abu Dhabi, but I doubt it. Because the car still got the Constructors, so. But British media, Abu Dhabi, it was split media. And I would be really curious to know. I would be really curious just to find out if it would ever be possible to experience such a thing. How the Italian media, by the way, are Tifosi. I would be really interested to see how the Italian media would have actually reacted to last year's championship campaign between the two title challengers, and would they have been spitting tar and feathers in regards to how Max Verstappen was racing Sir Lewis Hamilton if the car was red? If the car was red, would they be doing that? Genuine question. Because they write here that it's scandalous that Verstappen has skirted this rule somehow. He somehow skirted the pit exit rule. That's not a racing line. You're not racing that line. That line's there for everyone's safety. And he can just, well, we'll edit the rule because he's done something. And I've already mentioned Verstappen's innovation in another video in regards to what he was doing with his safety car restarts, right? I've already spoken about Verstappen in that regard, and I liked that. That was real innovation. I like that. What he's done here, this isn't actually innovation. This is just FOM choosing a horse. And I'm not exactly sure why FOM has chosen this horse. I'm not exactly sure why they've given their stewards the instruction of just denying the protest, because it seemed nailed on to me. It really seemed nailed on. And what exactly was he going to lose? I mean, the rest of the race was so far behind them. Give him a 10-second penalty or something for it. Who cares? Alright? Who cares? Honestly, who cares? Or was it going to put him behind George Russell, and so they said, okay, that's going to be an actual blow in the championship, metaphysically. Who knows? But these things aren't going to really fly by the Tifosi. The FIA and FOM and whoever is actually going to be seeing out the season, because I'm pretty sure Massey is going to be brought back, and who knows, the stewards might even be making themselves look incompetent on purpose just so that there's a convenient narrative that can be built up as to why Massey should be back on the back on the board. And these things are not going to fly by the Tifosi. They're just not. They're really not. And the Italian media are Tifosi as well. So if they're going to actually try and run the season this way, I will be very interested to see just what type of optics they can get away with. Right? If this is a Verstappen parade season, I'll be very interested to see what optics they can get away with. Never mind what's happened with Checo over here in Monaco. I'm sure he's been set up over here, right? I don't know what the scenario might be. I don't know if he's an MK asset and Marco is the handler and he's given him some keywords and he forgot who he was for a second. Who knows? I don't know if they sourced him up proper. I don't know if they sourced him up on some of that high grade Monaco booze. Who knows? I don't know if they told him there would be no cameras around or anything. Who knows? I don't know if the lady is an MK acid. Who knows? Maybe they said, hey, look, go seduce this guy. Go seduce her. She's got me a diamond acid. Who knows? I can't see her face. Could be anybody. Or just some basic Thadiana. Who knows? But the things happened with him. Myself, I'm reading it as a salvo from Red Bull. They're saying, hey, look, we can put you in some compromising positions. So slow your roll on racing this Verstappen guy. Who knows? That's how I'm reading it. Could be anything right now. It could just be Perez doing a stupidness. It could just be Perez doing a stupidness. But there's a lot of things that just keep on happening, which just somehow seem to favor that number one car. And the Italians, they won't stand for it. Well, the Tifosi in general, they won't stand for it. It's not going to be like the British media where, they play both sides, Sir Lewis Hamilton, he don't have the complexion for the connection. So, just get yourself a raise, get yourself that Christmas raise. Play the villain for them. And then everyone will forget about it in a few months' time. If not a few months' time, they'll forget about it in a few years' time. What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're old and they pull up the footage like, oh, look at what he said. Like, nothing's gonna happen. They know nothing's gonna happen. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Tifosi reacts to a perhaps challenging season. It'll be interesting to see what type of fight back Leclerc can put on. It was noteworthy that he finished Monaco, despite not winning or even getting a podium. It was noteworthy enough that he finished. So perhaps that duck is broken, or perhaps he is now just lucky enough to finish a Monaco Grand Prix, which is itself somewhat good enough. Somewhat. I still don't think he wins championship from here, but who knows? He might make the optics very challenging for FOM. Either way, Baku is going to present its own unique challenge. And yeah, we'll get into that as the weekend, not even as the weekend unfolds, just only with the GP observations, because it's probably going to be a fully loaded weekend once again. Unless Baku delivers us a calm Grand Prix, I don't know, seems very unlikely. Seems very unlikely at this point. But yeah, that's the vid. Peace.
Hell breezy. Let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there. Hey. Let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop. Cause you know I gotta win every day. Go! See, you really wanna pop me. Go! Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. Go! You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come a nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it, then I'm gonna murder everything saying anything about a boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always winning, and I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it to death, and now I move a little foul. Nigga better call a rap, and everybody know my style. Niggas know that I'm the best when it comes to doing this, and I be banging on my chest, and I bang in the east, and I banging in the west, and I come to give you more, and I will never give you less. You will hear it in the street, or you can read it in the press. Do you really wanna know what's next? Let's go. See the way we on it, and we all up in the race, and you know we gotta go, not try to keep up with the pace, and we struggling and hustling and sell it and get it, and we always gotta do it, take it to